Joe is, of course, the son of immigrants. His parents had a hard life, and he, like many others in our nation's history, through hard work and determination, rose to become one of the greatest public officials in our state's history. Others have done so. And in the peculiar way that life occurs, particularly in our country, the first true meritocracy in all of human history, some who go through that trial, and it is a trial, become hard and look down upon those who face similar circumstances but weren't able to overcome them and didn't reach the pinnacle of success that they did. They forget where they came from. Joe Brennan has never forgotten where he came from. He has always had a strong sense of social justice combined with personal integrity and a profound commitment to do what he could to improve the lives of all of our people. I want to say a few words about the subject of our country and immigration, because I think that they are central to understanding Joe's life and career. We're all fortunate to be Americans, citizens of a country which, despite its many serious imperfections, remains the most open, the most just, the most free society in all of human history. The United States is the world's dominant power and will continue to be for as far into the future as human beings can see. Although we face serious challenges at home and abroad, our military strength is by far the greatest in human history, and our economy is the world's largest and strongest. But the American people are fearful and anxious. On first impression, it sounds contradictory, but in fact, it is understandable, and what is occurring now has occurred many times in the past. Today, we and the rest of the world are passing through a revolution in technology that future historians will judge to be as significant a turning point in human history as was the Industrial Revolution. The effects of this revolution are intensified by the dramatic growth since the Second World War of international trade in goods and services and in the movement of people across national borders. The effects have been both positive and negative. One has been the creation of wealth in our society and others without precedent in history. But that wealth is not being distributed throughout our whole society. And as a result, many of our fellow citizens are victims, not beneficiaries, of the revolution in technology. Neither we nor any other society has yet devised fully effective policies to mitigate the adverse effects of increased trade in technology that so many are now enduring, even as so many others of us benefit. To do that, we need the unity of our people. We need a national commitment to make good health, good education, and good jobs available to all Americans, the kind of commitment that Joe Brennan had to the people of Maine when he served as governor. We all need to recognize that we are more than a collection of individuals. We are citizens of a free society from which each of us derives enormous benefit and to which each of us has responsibilities. Fear, anxiety, harsh responses in times of transition are not new in our history. Even the sources of that fear are not new. For the first century of our national existence, America welcomed immigrants from all over the world to fill a vast continent. The first restrictions on immigration came in the 1880s, when the Congress enacted a law whose title was blunt, the Chinese Exclusion Act. It was a reaction to the entry of Chinese laborers who helped build the Transcontinental Railroad. In 1906, a major earthquake devastated San Francisco. Unable to accommodate all of the children whose schools were destroyed, the city adopted an ordinance which prohibited any child of Japanese ancestry, even those born in the United States, from entering or attending any public school. In the very beginning, when the Spanish, the Dutch, the English, and the French settlers fought one another and the Native Americans for control of North America, there was discrimination against, stigmatizing, and hostility to anyone who was different. Later, successive waves of Italians and Irish, Jews and Catholics and others were all met with hostility, with exclusion, with racial and religious stereotyping. Every Irish American here and across this country is aware of the signs that appeared all across the major cities of our country. Irish need not apply. And the cartoons that were published in newspapers here in Maine and all across America that depicted the Irish as subhuman. Every Italian American remembers how they all were stigmatized because of the few who were mafia criminals. The Ku Klux Klan is remembered best for its violence against African Americans in the South, but they actually reached their peak in the North in the 1920s based on their extreme hostility to Catholics and Jews. Now, of course, every rational American knows that we can no longer accept in our country every single person in the world who wants to come here. It is a practical, physical, political impossibility. But our national debate recently has been focused almost entirely in a negative way on who cannot enter and why. But from the very beginning of our country to this very moment, including the Brennan family, our country has been enriched by new people, new ideas, new energy, new vision. Three of the most valuable business enterprises in the world today are Apple, Amazon, and Google. Apple was created by Steve Jobs, whose father was born in Syria. Amazon was created by Jeff Bezos, whose adoptive father was born in Cuba. And Google was created by Sergey Brin, who himself was born in Russia. Think about two rhetorical questions. Would the United States be a better country today if they had not been admitted? And of equal importance, what are the chances that Steve Jobs would have created Apple if he had lived his life in Syria? Or that Jeff Bezos would have created Amazon had he lived his life in Cuba? Or Sergey Brin in Russia? Genius knows no language, no race, no religion. It can be found anywhere that human beings live. But it is more likely to flourish where there is freedom, education, and opportunity for all, where innovation is encouraged and success is honored. Military power and economic strength are important, even necessary, but in the United States, they have been infused with the ideals that are the basis and the promise of American life. The sovereignty of the people, individual liberty, our highest value, opportunity for all, an independent judicial system, and the rule of law applied equally to all, and crucially, to the government itself. I learned a lot from Joe Brennan in my life, and when I became an assistant county attorney, the one thing he said to me, and I've never forgotten it, is that every person who enters this building is entitled to respect and dignity, no matter their background. And I remember that especially years later when I became a federal judge and began to make decisions on people's futures. And I became better aware of the disparity in treatment based upon their background and status in our judicial system. Our Constitution is more than a compilation of laws and procedures. It also is a statement of ideals and a symbol of American values, especially the principles of equal justice and equal rights for all, which are the principles that guided Joe Brennan's life and were the basis of every decision he made that affected members of our country. Despite all of the negative talk and the drumbeat of tragedy that dominates the news, I believe deeply in the promise and the future of our country. And what we really need are leaders who have the qualities that Joe Brennan had and demonstrated in his life: personal integrity, a deep and profound sense of social justice, a commitment to the welfare of all people, a respect for the dignity and self-worth of every human being, no matter how poor or what difficult circumstances they've had in their lives. We have all been honored to be members of the state which Joe Brennan governed, and we're all had the distinct pleasure, most of us at least I know, of counting Joe Brennan as our friend. Thank you all very much for coming and joining in this tribute tonight.